Hello Zayud, Abu Usama, how are you doing? I miss you, man. Uh, I don't know what your situation is, but I hope you're doing well, and maybe one day you will come and see me. But I'm making this video for a reason. Do you remember when you and I were driving, and then you brought up the folding of space by Einstein, right? And then I surprised you. I bumped you. I said, I narrated that verse, يوم نطوي السماء كطي السجل للكتب كما بدأنا أول خلق نعيده وعدا علينا إنا كنا صادقين. And then you got disappointed. My dear son, I usually don't allow my own, or anybody else for that matter, to float in dream state and think something is right and love it and celebrate it and so on when it's really not right? I'd rather wake you up, for example, for a fact, rather than allow you to keep drifting in misconceptions and wrong history, right? That's my method. I will not change it, but that's part of the reason I am making this video. There's something else about that guy, Einstein. I always deemed him or dubbed him as a scientific charlatan, right? Who's trying to become somebody, not become somebody. In the back of my head, he was trying to score in the realm of science and knowledge. He was trying to score for his people, right? We all have this national pride and so on and so forth. Well, not me. I mean, I love being an Arab, right? But I'm a Muslim, so wherever you are, Sunni or whatever you are, I'm a humanist, let's put it this way. So if I invent something or if I think of something, I would present it to humanity, not just certain people, right? No exclusions. So now I still stand by my theory that he took that theory from the Quran, right? But I still deep down inside had a respect for the guy, not like 100% respect, is when I read that he's really a self-taught person. He taught himself certain things like physics. I don't know. I think he's been to a university, he was teacher or student or something, but somewhere I read that he was self-taught. I have a lot of respect and admiration for those who teach themselves things and invent things on their own. Like I said in the past, those who invented math and science and so on, mainly Arabs, right? They didn't have PhDs from university, right? From universities. It was their own effort, their own time, and their own struggle and their own, so they just brought things to life and then gave it to life, right? People gave it to people. It's at the end of the day, Zeido, it's like an inspiration from Allah, right? It is not revelation, but something similar to it. However, there's no denial of certain things. Now, again, later on, Zayud, of course, I heard of his relativity, right? The theory of relativity. There was something, right? I couldn't deny it. The word relativity is very complex, Zeido. Some people try to explain it and so on, and I watched a few videos. They just don't know what it is, nor one can know what it is completely, right? The word relativity is very, very extremely complex, Zeido. You can define it by mathematical formulas, blah, 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 blah. Relativity, Zeido, is really, really a big word, as I know it myself, right? Now, let's pray. I am hoping that this relativity theory is his, not somebody else's, like he didn't take it from somebody else. I know he's been with Lawrence, Dr. Lawrence, and, talked about gravity, blah, blah, blah. But then one day, not too long ago, I was watching, I browsed watched videos on YouTube and so on, from scientific to gibberish to political trash, and you know me. I don't need to explain myself to you, right? So you, dear son, I love you. And then they started talking about some people trying to explain time. But then suddenly, as they do, Mr. Arab here just clicked back, right? and then used the word relativity for time, right? Relativity for time. And then at that night, it barely slept, right? It's the outside of my control, right? Right? It barely slept, and then it kept analyzing that relativity for the man, right? And sure enough, in the morning, I thought I had something going here, right? But then it went dormant, right? Similar to those quadrillion processors or processes or whatever it is. It just went dormant, and I didn't mind it. Until like 3 days ago, it clicked. Apparently that background process eventually came to a fruition, right? Not 100%, but close enough. It does appear as it sorted out what the man was trying to say when he spoke of his relativity, or E equals mc squared, right? So in a way, I think he may be vindicated on that one. So that's what I have the board here. I'm going to explain some gibberish. I'm going to go speak gibberish and trash and so on his behalf. But it'll show you that eventually. So I had been in the past. I had read in the past that is a possibility. I'm still thinking the guy took that folding space and the recycling of time from the Quran, right? But there is a very small possibility, very small possibility. And I'm sure, a lot of Jews read Quran, it's in their libraries and so on. There's a small possibility that I read that two people may be able to invent the same thing at the same time, or discover or state the same thing at the same time. At the end of the day, sometimes people read other things, other people and just don't remember they read them, and but so I'm not saying the guy is innocent on that front, but there is a very small possibility that he really said that on his own, right? So now let me throw in the gibberish that was thrown to us, thrown to me by your whoever relative, whatever, right? So here's what he was trying to say. That Einstein, guy with the long hair and so on. So he said EMC, right? Right? He said that, right? So the first thing my Arab learned about him and what he was trying to do there is that he really was trying to say this, right? He knew there's some fact. That's what he was thinking. Matter is energy, and vice versa. Energy is matter, right? Right, Zeido? That's what he was thinking. And guess what? Mr. Arab here told me this is true. But they're not the same. They are really different states. So at one end of, if you want to use the word dimension, or our sensations or matter or whatever it is, here's matter, and here's energy. Now that's a virtual delimiter, Zeido. That's what he really was trying to say, right? So there's a transition or transformation trough, right? How big is that trough? It may be 0 widths, it may be the width of the universe. I'm just using this as an illustration, right, of what he was thinking, right? So matter changes into energy, but it needs to be kicked into a certain process to convert into energy. Energy, which is the vast majority of this universe, does change into matter, right? That's what he was saying. So matter does not become energy that easy, right? It's very difficult process. I'll show you where I personally believe matter is made, right? Energy, on the other hand, is what you see in the universe. It's way beyond the universe. You don't feel it. It's really in space. Now, that's what he was trying to say. So when he, okay, no, let's go back, right? So now he was thinking that actually, which is true. Energy is matter and matter is energy. What is form of energy? Probably heat, probably something in space. We don't know things of the sort, right? Right? Right. So now there is the C12, right? Or C2, which is speed of light squared, right? Right? Now the speed of light, they've taken that to be a fixed speed. I would hesitate doing that, Zeido. I don't know if speed of light is really a delimiter of certain transformation or certain, like similar to, say, for example, in aerodynamics, right? Zeido, in aerodynamics, there is super subsonic and there's supersonic, right? It's about 500 miles an hour, maybe 550, 500 an hour, maybe to 550, I think, mph. That is dependent, Zeido, on the density of air, right? Or the atmosphere or the pressure. But it hovers around that. So this is really a fixed number. What is that fixed number? Is when the air has no longer flows smoothly over the wing, right? Now it becomes, it hits the wing, it's like it's hitting the wing. So in subsonic speeds is where you see those thick wings, right? In supersonic speed, you see the small, the very thin wing, right? Why? Because the aerodynamic pressures, blah, 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 it completely changes. It shifts from one state to another in order for you to maintain airborne and fly. Things change there. That's why I'm saying I am really not sure about the speed of light being a delimiter, right? Or a mile marker like this. But it could be considered, I don't know, I mean, I think it's probably more, but it could be considered mile 1, right? Mile 1 or kilometer 1, right? The speed, that's C, or speed of light, right? Right, Zeido? But I personally know, oh, this is only this is like your airplane or shuttle going at 17,000 miles an hour, right? When there's 1 mile, right? Multipliers of the 1 mile. So I know speed of light is really an initial. There are speeds in this universe, Zeido, that go like hyperlight. I call them hyperlight speed. Hyperlight speed. Here's the deal, Zeido. I am not sure about this. Maybe you can help me. If you arrive at the speed of light, you can no longer curve. Once you curve, you lose speed, Zeido. Right? Once you curve. If you're traveling in space, if you're going at speed of light, you may no longer actually curve. But I am not sure. At one point, when matter changes into energy, that's in the universe. Like, you think it's, remember what I told, I think I told you, or I told Yomin or somebody with a text, that if the universe was empty, totally empty, like there's nothingness, you will not even light will make it through. I said that to you, remember? So once you reach that transition, say from matter into energy, you're no longer traveling in curves. This is straight line, or it is circular. Again, I'm like, right? It's circular, right? Could be circular. So energy, pure energy, which is, I don't know, maybe they want to call antimatter or something. That's in space, that's moving like at hyper light speeds, right? Way beyond, right? Or it could be resonance, right? It's resonating so fast that it changes matter, right? So that matter, when it changes into energy, whether it's circular or straight line, right, or resonance, right, it no longer interacts with the current matter. It goes through it, or matter goes through energy, that energy, right? Energy after it transformed into energy, right? So at certain speeds, it's a straight line, right? Or it's a circular, but that circle must be extremely large. I mean, we're talking probably, here's a galaxy, right? Here's 2, here's 3, and then here you have like at 0. So those speeds they can traverse, say, this is a galaxy, right? They can traverse from here to here in 0 time, right? And anytime matter changes into energy, that's it, Zeido. Speed is irrelevant, right? Irrelevant. Hence, stagnation of time. Now you go, right? Right, Zeido? That's what he was thinking, actually. But the guy got way over his head, right? I mean, the formula to explain that is extremely complex, right? When he finalized that formula, right, he wanted to move mass, right, into energy, right? He wanted something there, and that speed, that's the speed of transition between matter and energy, right? So here he went into a deadlock, right, a gridlock, right? So he just threw in C2, right, C squared. Really, toward the end of his days, that's what I know about that's all his thinking, Zeido, right? That he threw this in, but he really wasn't sure about it, right? This here got him very confused, right, Zeido? But he decided to leave it as is. Why? Because he wants to make, to arrive at very high speeds, right? Because he knew to move from matter into energy state, you need that enormous colossal, very high speeds, hyper, as I called it just now, hyper light speed, right? But that's something the Arabs had always a solution for. If we know the actual mile marker of this here, he will have removed it, right? If he knew. But guess what? Arabs did something in the past, remember? T2 minus T1, right? Or guess what? Their letter sin, remember? Harf sin. Sin, right? 0 to 1, for example, right? And then here, what they do is say dx, right? متحول. هذا called متحول, right? هذا اسمه النطاق أو range. You know that stuff, right? Right? So this here, the C, must be removed, Zeido. Energy is matter, but this is what he was trying to say. This is I call it a transition or transformation formula. But now notice, Zeido, here, this is not as simple, right? Why do I mean by that? Because when they arrive at this speed, this one is 0, right? And then when it arrives at here, at this location here, I don't know. This is actually the product of the dx or T2 minus T1, right? So C, maybe, I don't know, right? You know this better than I do. I'm bullshitting you here, right? So here, when you arrive at this state, you will need to replace the C. you'll need to add like blah 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 formula, right? But this I don't know. One can guess. One can only guess, right? Uh, uh, right. So, and again, that's what he was thinking really. Mass is energy, and then he wanted to transit. That's how it transitions, right? Now here, Zeido, there is. I'm going to explain to you this here. Mass going into energy. High level, not that I know the very low level, but what he was thinking, Zeido, right? So you need to replace the C2. C2, he wasn't even like very conclusive about it. So he was not very conclusive. He just finally threw it in because he thought if you do C square root, but then that's not the square root. So if you got 186 miles, 1,000 miles an hour, right? And you multiply it, this is not a constant, Zeido. He put a constant here. This is not a constant. This is definitely a variable, right? Right? So if you want to consider the C increases in many folds, and it keeps increasing and increasing and increasing until the matter becomes energy. Why? Because matter can at certain movement cannot sustain its structure anymore, and it dissolves into its original state, which is energy, which is probably atoms or even smaller than that. It becomes something very small, right? For something, some people say subatomic particle. I would say subatomic matter, which is really no longer the matter that we feel anymore, right? It's just a different state of existence. Entropy is big deal here, Zeido, right? Entropy, right? Everything is preserved. How big the universe is? Everything is preserved, right? We're the only one, well, we're not the only one, who go and steal from the entropy, right? We change it from one state into another and then get work for it, right? But then even the work produces heat and so on. So it all equals, right? You probably know the entropy, right? Right? So this here, the C, he has his doubts about and his problem. So number one, I could tell you that if he lived long enough, he may have actually discovered that, right? So the C is a variable, really, and that increases, right? Or decreases down to a zero. So it increases, right? So the C12, C2, or whatever it is, let's say, goes from probably minus, right? Minus infinity to plus infinity, right? So minus infinity to plus infinity. Or there is some kind of a delimiter, as I explained about the supersonic converting to subsonic and so on, right? Right, Zeido? So that is, he had a problem with, and he knew, is what I got, is he knew he wasn't really sure about that one. But he was onto something. His main theory is that matter is energy and energy is matter, right? All right, let me erase that. So how does it change, say, from energy, right? Energy into mass, right? How does it do that, Zeido? Well, from energy to mass, usually there are sinkholes, right? There are sinkholes, or call them black holes, right? These are small, very small, but they're like buttons in your dress or something of the sort. That energy, when it's passing by very like hyper light speed, right? Right? Or resonating, but moving nonetheless, right? In the universe, right? Or circling. When they pass by that black hole, Zeido, they sink in. Why? They either get trapped or they get pushed in. That's why I, at one point, thought of gravity as a push, not pull. But then later on, I read somewhere that I'm not the first one to think of that, right? So they go here, and then when they go into that black hole, they did end into a very extremely finite place, right? Not all of them, right? By the time some of them change into material, when they, right? So take the sun, right? And energy is coming in, right? Sometimes they condense into material here, sometimes here, sometimes here. But there is one point here that they cannot breach no matter what. These things, I don't know what they are. I think they're like super matter or something of the sort. And the sun itself ejects them as energy as well, but not the energy that's going at, say, hyper light speed, rather than, like sun flares and something. Hence, therefore, Zeido, the biggest generator or converter from energy to mass is really the core of the galaxy. That's why planets are not trapped by the galaxy, Zeido. They are made and given birth by the galaxy. And I said this before to you guys, that galaxies give birth to galaxies because this energy moving at like hyperlight speed gets trapped here and slows down. When it slows down, Zeido, how it slows down, it curves, right? So if it curves, that's it. It's no longer at that speed, right? Which is making it energy. And here it begins to condense, right? Some of it fall in, some of it goes past it, some of it condensed. Eventually, that core of the galaxy traps all that energy, right, and converts it into planets, right? As well as that core of planets. So that's in Earth, that's in the sun, that's in the moon. Whenever you see something round, big in space, it has that type of material, right? In it, some of it small, some of it big, some of it large. But there is a collapse size, meaning if it goes more than, say, certain diameter or circumference, volume, right? Volume, right? And diameter and so on, it collapses, it shatters, right? But it's always that matter here is always like a sphere, spherical, right? And they in turn start attracting, energy, blah, 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 blah. But when they're small, they're weak. After they leave the core of the galaxy, they begin to lose matter, right? And that matter is lost in space, right? Sometimes we don't see it. That matter it gets activated into high speed and then gets lost in space. That's why outside of the galaxy, Zeido, you don't see anything, because all these bodies that were created here, they eventually dissolve here, and they begin to either resonate very high or circle very high or go at hypersonic speed from one end of the universe to another, right? So that's what he was thinking. That's precisely what he was thinking. Again, all I can tell you, Zeido, so it's very slow going from matter into energy. It's very slow, right? Going from energy to matter is very high. It's also slow, right? But it's much more, right? Maybe they're equal. I don't know, Zeido. I don't know, right? So here, I'm going to repeat that. He wanted to accelerate M into E, right? Accelerate. But here he got like a little bit lost. And then even toward the day he died, right? He was still thinking that, but eventually he gave up. He thought he was never going to find that variable here, which he did as a constant, right? But I can tell you, so it's T2 minus T1, or sine, right? Minus blah blah to plus blah blah, right? And then you get the dx here somewhere, right? Right? So the dx is actually a unit of light, if you want to consider light. I don't know. I don't think light speed is really the speed marker that converts. So whenever there's movement, remember the structure of certain things converts into another, such as such as matter converting into energy. It keeps converting and losing mass, right? Until it becomes energy, right? But you need that speed or movement. Again, the movement could be circular, the movement could be resonation. Like more, for example, take I don't know. I mean, and then or movement from one end of the universe to another, and so on and so forth. That's virtual. I really don't know. But the universe is definitely far bigger than we see, right? So that's it. سين هذا حرف سين هذا زيرو. Does that look familiar, Abu Usama? So that's the gibberish I have. If I find anything else, I can tell you. I will tell you about it. But like in the past month, apparently that background process kind of fetched or understood what he was trying to do with his with his formulas and his thinking. His thinking certainly deeper than that formula, right, Zeido? Right, so there you got like right, Ryan, Stein, right, and here you get yourself like this. So this is what I'm trying to say here, Zeido, is that this chimpanzee looking Jew was actually on to something big. All right, Zeido, I love you, but yeah, that chimpanzee looking Jew was onto something. Unfortunately, he was unable to complete it, but you know, he still gets credit for it. I don't care if he's what, chimpanzee or Jew or whatever it is. I don't like those people, but credit goes where credit is due. My brain, or Mr. Arab here, fetched the flow process of his. I'm sure he went like about doing maths and so on and so forth, but he really never arrived at that constant, because we don't know really. I mean, I myself can tell you that the speed of light is not necessarily one big constant in life and existence. I don't think so. If you want to consider it mile 1, then you have to multiply it. And the square actually, the square tells you that he believes that there are speeds more than the speed of light, right? That's what I read, that the c is really the constant, is really a constant, that's the speed of light. So apparently he understood also, it was in his brain that there are speed beyond the speed of light. That's what I see. So that chimpanzee looking Jew was actually onto something really big, Zeido. He was thinking in terms of this really dimension that we're in. So back to time, right? Time is relativity, Zeido. That formula that I added, you know, like the dx and the sin and so on, Zeido, it could actually dead end at 0 or goes to a, you know, there's a point at one point where it may curve like up, way up, and then at apogee, and then it falls down to 0, right? The curve must end at 0 and at 0. Why? Because 0 is the a constant of stability. Let's say the number is a constant of stability in matter and in energy and so on and so forth. So it's a very complex. I don't think he got on there, but he definitely knew, just like I do now, that we don't know really the constant of speed of light. What is it really? What it is, right? Okay, because light does exist, right? As photons or whatnot, right? So you need something, either the multiplication of it, but then you need to know that. And I think that will prove very difficult to decipher. But in his thinking, Zeido, yeah, he was definitely onto something. So hey, son, I love you, and I just wanted to clarify that to you. My brain just came back with it, and I know this is only scratching the surface, but I am sure you know math very well, and you know other people know math very well. Maybe they'll complete it for him. I don't know. But yeah, definitely this is his unfinished symphony. That's really there. Like I said, I dismissed him as a scientific charlatan, except for two things. Number one, I knew he was trying to do something like in the name of his people, right? The Jewish people, like he wanted to jump into the platform where everybody has invented everything else and except them, right? And at the same time, he was self-taught, if not in everything, but in some things he was self-taught. So it means that he was on a quest, right? He was on a quest to get something going, right? But yeah, that's what I can confirm to you, Zeido, and with absolute certainty, that energy is matter and matter is energy. They just transform between the two states. It's a lengthy process, Zeido, but yeah, it's there. So you get like, and then say for example, you take a small anything, right, and then move it at those speeds where it becomes completely energy, right? This thing will expand to a huge size, right? And then anything can pass through it, and then it can pass through anything, right? Similar to radar waves or electric waves going through walls and plastic and wood and stuff like that. That's all I want to tell you, Zeido. The guy, that chimpanzee looking Jew, was actually onto something. And again, when we were driving the car and I narrated that verse to you, Zeido, I didn't mean to. I mean, it may sounded like you were you went into a disappointment or something of the sort, but no, Zeido, I would rather like confront my own child and everybody else with the facts, right? Because if I stay silent, one of the two situations arise. Either I'm letting you float into a wrong field, into the wrong realm of thinking and euphoria and celebration, something that's not right, or I am ignoring you because I don't care what happens to you. And if you're my fellow human, I would like to wake you up, or if you're my son, more so, I would like to give you a hug when I see you. Stop by and see me, Zeido. I love you. I really love you. And if you want, I can just go to New York and see you. Lunch on me. I love you and your siblings, Zeido. Take care now. Bye now. Bye-bye. Don't come back, Zaid. Don't come back from New York. When I left Syria, the first few months in Paris, like 1 month or so, I was crying like a baby. Well, I didn't cry like a baby, but I just wanted to go back home, right? But eventually I learned to be on my own, and I've been on my own ever since I was 18, let's put it this way. I had to struggle and so on. When I was your age, I had my first child, Anna, right? And then there was a big load on my back, right? With 6 children and so on. But I really never wavered, Zeido. I really never faltered. Emotions don't get the best of me. I do get the best of emotions. So finish what you're doing in New York, Zeido, and then you can come back here. Or if you want, you can move elsewhere. It's up to you. I really recommend you go on your own. If you want to come here, just go on your own, find a job or something, and then you can still get in touch with your, with your sisters and see how they're doing and so on. But don't give up because you feel bad or you feel nostalgic. I love you, Baba. Take care now.